is a discussion that nobody likes to have, especially me. First and foremost, I would like to clarify that I love Dragon's Dogma. I was posting videos about Dragon's Dogma 2 years before it was actually announced. And now here we are, just a couple of weeks away discussing about Dragon's Dogma 2. And one of those topics that I thought that it would be a good idea to bring up is the microtransactions and yeah, how paid to win is this thing going to be? And I would very much like to clarify some of this stuff. We know so far, it is official that there are Rift Crystals. It is official, thanks to the game's listings, that there are going to be in-game purchases in the game. How is that going to affect your game? That is what we're going to be discussing in here. We'll try to have a healthy discussion about this. And, well, first and foremost, I mean, you do have to realize that it is Capcom. Capcom has never been that heavy. The Capcom games usually make easy progression on stuff, so you would say that that is a pay-to-win kind of scenario. But there's a couple of situations that need to be clarified when it comes to Dragon's Dogma, because this is nothing new. This is an in-game currency that already existed on the original baseline of Dragon's Dogma. And one thing that I found lately when I read on forums is that people usually think about Rift Crystals when it comes to pawns. And yes, that is by all means a kind of mechanic that you can use to, let's say, somehow cheese the game. But we'll try to clarify as much as possible what is it that this is going to affect or not going to affect your game. First and foremost, there is going to be a currency system, Dragon's Dogma 2, where you can purchase the Rift Crystals that are usable to purchase in-game things. Well, not necessarily purchase in-game things. I would like to clarify that, for example, the gold, the currency, all of the items, the vendors, there's no way for you to have it easier for you. At least it was not the case on the very first game, Dragon's Dogma, original Dragon's Dogma 2012. So the only main reason that you would use them for would be for hiring pawns that would be higher level than you. Every time that you would try to hire your friend's pawn or someone else's pawn, if it has your level, then you can hire it without any kind of issues, without any kind of problems. But if you want to hire a pawn that has a higher level than your main character, then that is where the Rift Crystals come into play. How is this going to affect the gameplay, and how does this makes it everything to be some kind of a pay-to-win kind of scenario? Simple enough. If you are just starting the game, you purchase a whole bunch of Rift Crystals, and with those Rift Crystals, you can basically, if you do not change the pawn that you hired that one time, it is not time limited, you can have the pawns as long as you need, as long as you want to, even while you log off the game. So if let's say, for example, we know that perhaps somehow the game is going to be have a level cap of 999, according to the picture that we discussed about the other day. That's a place, probably could be a placeholder, not official, I digress. Anyways, if you hire someone, a group of pawns that is going to have higher level than your character, then you're probably going to let them do everything. And yes, it is possible. As a matter of fact, something very popular to do in the original Dragon's Dogma, it was to have over-equipped characters. Not over-level characters, but the most famous pawns that you would find out there with the best ratings would be pawns of people that have like brand new games with endgame gear. Do not ask me how they managed to get that thing. It was actually pretty hard to do so if you didn't level up your character. But that being said, there was people with high endgame content gear that had their pawns in very low levels, like very low levels, and you would be able to hire those pawns, and everything would be so much easier. So that's some way of making this game pay to win. What's the other kind of pay to win scenario that Dragon's Dogma 2 could possibly have? The endgame, and this is the one that people overlooks the most. On the original Dragon's Dogma and Black Bitter Isle, the Dark Risen DLC, there was a currency system where you would have like the Black Bitter back aisle items or armors, and every time that you would pick up gear, whether if it's armor, accessories, jewelry, or weapons, it will always be behind this kind of little thingy that I'm showing you on screen right now. It's either a bitter black isle gear, bitter black isle armor, weapon, so on and so forth. And to open these things up, depending on the rarity of them, depending on if they were tier 1, 2 or 3, or the higher ones, you would need to use Rift Crystals. This was the higher possible tier equipment in the game, meaning that it was not enough for you to have the Dark Arisen DLC. You would still need to have like the Rift Crystals. There's ways for you to have the Rift Crystals, but if you want to like farm them in-game, at least in Dragon's Dogma 2012, the farm was unreal. Like, there were many YouTube videos out there where you would have like routes that it would yield you the choice to get them in-game, but it wasn't anything that particularly amazing. Like, you would have to be grinding instead, aside from grinding hours and hours and hours of the gear on itself, the armor, weapons, and accessories. You would also have to farm for the Rift Crystals to even have the chance to open them, and they would be randomized. You would never get like what you were looking for. One more thing that you could potentially get Rift Crystals from, and this was very popular as well. This is something that I'm guessing that it is going to be present in Dragon's Dogma 2, and which is why I advise for you to join the Discord for my community, sharing your pawn. When you share your pawn with somebody else and they use your pawn, if they use your pawn for a very long time, once your pawn returns back to you every time that you log into, depending on how many times or how much has it been used by a player, your pawn would return with a huge and filthy amount of disgusting Rift Crystals. Yeah, it was amazing. I think that was like the predilect one, because it was like kind of an AFK or passive farming for Rift Crystals. So yeah, but if no one hired your pawn, if you didn't have friends to hire your pawn, then you would have to be joining Discords, going into Reddit, or just joining communities to ask people to use your pawn, just like that. And sometimes people is kind enough to say like, hey, I'm going to use your pawn, not because they need your pawn, but because they know that they are helping you by using your pawn to get Rift Crystals. And then there's the third scenario, the pay to win kind of scenario, where you directly just purchase the Rift Crystals to be able to unlock those endgame content items that you would otherwise would not have access to, or wouldn't be able to open them. And the higher the tier or rarity of the gear that you would be opening up, the more expensive would it get to use the Rift Crystals. So because of all of this that I am telling you right now, veterans are already very much aware of all of this. One thing that I do want to clarify after all of this is that this was only true on the DLC, the Dark Arisen DLC. Rift Crystals for the base game before the DLC, you would never need them. You would forget about that thing. Yes, it was something very pay to win to higher level of pawns by using Rift Crystals, but if you didn't really care about that, it didn't really affect your game. The game was not balanced on being like that. If you completely just ignore the Rift Crystals, you could, by all means, you could. Things got a little bit darker when the DLC arrived, where the game became a little bit more pay to win. And yes, I'd say that in the DLC it is a little bit more pay to win, because like I said, if you didn't farm for the Rift Crystals by playing the game in offline mode, it was very difficult for you to equip your characters with the best possible gear, and you would also need to equip not only your main character, but also the vocations and the gear for the vocations of the different vocations and things that you would want to do. So yes, the DLC, it was very, very pay to win, but then again, the DLC was not mandatory. It was not like something that you would force to play, and there were ways of getting like that little extra currency for you to equip your character. But yeah, I mean, it was very, very pay to win. Like, the Rift Crystals were a very big deal when it comes to the Black Bitter Isle, or the Bitter Black Isle, or the Dark Arisen DLC. So It all depends. I'm guessing that at least I can be confident to say that when it comes to Dragon's Dogma 2, I don't think that the base entirety of the game, like the base core experience that you are going to have in front of you, is going to be overshadowed by the use of the Rift crystals. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I do not think that they are going to lock away the contents on that kinds of scenario. But I would very much, yes, see plausible like that kind of endgame content being locked away if you forcing you to, like, for example, share your pawn, use the online system of the pawn, and being a little bit more punishing if you play the offline version of everything, and being a little bit more heavy into the Rift Crystals usage. I'm just sharing this information to you so that you would be prepared of what is it that it could potentially possibly be the case, because for now, at least, we know that Rift Crystals are a thing in Dragon's Dogma 2, and that they are going to be present, that there's in-game purchases present in Dragon's Dogma 2. Anyways, if you like the content, like and really super appreciate it. No, I'll tell you today, you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. I'll be seeing you, beautiful, beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Goodbye.